Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second webinar of the Effective Parental Engagement for Student Learning course of the Teacher Academy. My name is Nor Carrera, and I'm one of the moderators of this MOOC, along with my colleagues Ben and Rosa, who I believe they're also here with us. And I have seen a lot of people from many countries. So we've got Portugal, Germany, Greece, Spain also, and Cyprus, so many places. So we are very happy to have you here. And before we start, we're gonna ask you to mute your microphone so that we don't hear any background noise, and we'll do the same with ours. If you have any questions for the speakers, please write them on the chat, and then we will be relaying those to them at the end of the presentation. So as usual, this webinar will last around 1 hour, but if you have to leave for anything, no worries, because we are recording the meeting and we will share this in the relevant section of the course, which in this case it's 3.4. So you're now working on Module 3, which is about involving parents in educational activities. And to talk about this topic, we have the honor to have great speakers with us today. They are Ramon Flecha and Marta Soler. Welcome both, Ramon and Marta.
Thank you. Welcome.
And they will be talking about the impact of family involvement regarding students' learning achievements, as well as well-being and social inclusion of the community through successful educational actions. So let me just give you a bit of a background of both of them. So Ramon Flecha is a Doctor Honoris Causa of the West University of Timisoara and Professor of Sociology at the University of Barcelona. He has been chair of the expert group on evaluation methodologies for the interim and ex-post evaluation of Horizon 2020. He has led several European projects dealing with inclusion and cultural minorities, such as the project Work Law, where he dealt with the creation of new occupational patterns for cultural minorities, and which was approved also by the European Parliament, giving therefore rise to different European member states' policies. He has also been involved in the project Included, with strategies for inclusion and social cohesion from education in Europe. And he currently directs the Impact EV, a project that aims to develop a permanent system of selection, monitoring, and evaluation of the different impacts of social science and humanities research. His scientific works have been published in different scientific journals, such as the Harvard Education Review, the Journal of Mixed Methods Research, or the Cambridge Journal of Education, where the article that he published received the Best Paper Prize in 2013, thus being the most read article of the history of the journal, which is impressive. So congratulations on this. And I will be sharing some links to this article in the chat in a while, so in case you're interested. And we also have Marta Soler. She's a PhD in Harvard. She's professor of sociology at the University of Barcelona as well, and director of the research center CREA at the same university. She is a member of the governing board of the European Alliance for Social Science and Humanities, and she's also a member of the executive committee of the European Sociological Association. She currently coordinates the Horizon 2020 Research Solidus, funded also by the European Commission, on the study of solidarity in Europe, and she has also been knowledge management coordinator in the project Included, which was also directed by Ramon Flecha. She has published also her research in journals such as Harvard Educational Review, Cambridge Journal of Education, or Qualitative Inquirer, among others. She's also author of the book Achieving Social Impact, which explains the keys and insights of the research conducted by CREA. So amazing CV, both of you, congratulations, and we are really honored to have you here, because we know that you're usually very busy, so we really appreciate. And I think you're the best, of course, speakers to guide us through this topic, so whenever you are ready, I hand it over to you. Okay. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nair, for this presentation, and we are very happy and very pleased to have had this invitation and to have the opportunity to be here with you and sharing some of our research, and we hope that we can provide some insights that they will have a very good discussion and many questions after that. So we will be talking about family involvement through successful educational action. So we'll focus on these ideas of successful educational actions, and we will focus on three main points. One is why we are talking about these successful educational actions and the involvement of parents on this, and this is linked to the right to education for all. Then we'll talk about two of these successful educational actions. These are interactive groups, and after that, dialogic literary gatherings. So these will be the three things that we will be discussing now. So we'll start with the right to education for all.
Well, there are an increasing number of schools in Europe and elsewhere that demonstrate that we can get the right of education for all children. That is not true, as some interpretations of international statistics say, that the results that students, pupils achieve at the schools are a consequence of their socio-economic status, diversity, or even the level of education of their parents. We have just one example, but there are many schools like this. This school has 90% of very poor pupils from very different countries, immigrants, poor immigrants in that case. But their academic achievements are similar and even better than the achievements of the upper class private schools in any language, in mathematics, and so on. But besides that, they have very good performance on emotions, on values, and so on. Our point is that we can get the same results in any school of the European Union. Rural, urban schools, upper class, lower class, and so on. How we can get this and why is important to get this? Because the right of education is not the opportunity to go to one school, but to find in this school the kind of organization of the classroom, the kind of relation with parents that scientifically has been demonstrated that get the best results. It's like the right for health. You have the right for health if you can go to one hospital, but also if in this hospital they apply to you the treatment that has been demonstrated scientifically that get the best results. Later on, we will go to two examples in part 2 and 3 of this presentation, to two examples of those educational actions that get this kind of success. How we can know these successful actions? How we can know which actions in education get the best results? We should go to the scientific researchers and scientific journals that have published which actions get the best results. For instance, in the list that the European Commission made of 10 successful scientific research, the only one on social science and humanities, not only in education, was included. And included has made the list of educational successful actions. So we have the list there. Of course, this list has been published by the best scientific journals of education and also for the best publishing companies in books. But also because we have the right citizens to know this. Even we have here one article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that proclaims the right of everyone to have access to science. So parents, pupils, teachers, we have the right to have the access to know these scientific demonstrations of which actions can get the best results in our schools. And the European Commission, among other governments, but the European Commission has published any school took kits of different actions. And in these toolkits, you can find also the educational successful actions we are going to explain you. For instance, in inclusive education, they remark the results of the included research, but also makes the precision of some successful educational actions. One of them in interactive groups, we are going to explain just now. The second one, dialogic literary gatherings, will be the third part of this presentation. And still we have others, like family education, that we will explain in both, in part 2 and in part 3. So let's go to those successful educational actions that get the best academic results and the most diverse participation of parents within education.
So one of these successful actions is interactive groups. Interactive groups has been found to be the form of organization of the classroom which generates most learning, which accelerates learning the most, no? And within the inclusive ways of organizing the classroom, no? What does interactive groups consist of, no? So there has been a lot of research that already has proven that streaming, no, or separating children according to level of achievement or according to language proficiency, no, any kind of separation creates segregation and creates a school failure, no? So interactive groups is a way of inclusion in which all children are in the same classroom, but and organized in groups, but the teacher is not alone, no? Instead of, when there are difficulties in the classroom, instead of taking children outside, no, the solution is bringing support into the classroom. So here we have, for instance, a classroom with 4 groups, and in each group there is one family member that comes as a volunteer that comes into the classroom and is helping to dynamize the group, and using, no, following the principles of dialogic learning. So the people who come into the classroom, they are family members, alumni, neighbors from the community, so different people who are part of the community. So they are human resources that we already have in the school, but they come to accelerate and to help the learning process. The groups are organized in a heterogeneous way. It means that each group has a higher diversity within, no, in levels of rhythms of education, education styles, language, so as much diversity as possible within each group. No? And the volunteer, which is in each one of the group, no? The role is not to be a teacher. So this form of organizing, it's not that we have a small group so the ratio is reduced, but instead this volunteer, which is a family member, a member from the community, the role is to facilitate the dialogue and the interactions within the group. So so doesn't need to have educational training for being in the classroom, no? Because what this person has to do is to guarantee that the children solve together, talk to each other, and help each other to solve the task that they have to do in the group. So in this way, in each one of the group, there is a small, let's think that they are doing mathematics. So in each group, they will do a small task, or let's say 15 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on how is the organization in that particular school. And so when they are solving one task of mathematics, for instance, like algebra, and 15 minutes, and when the 15 minutes are finished, they have to move to the next group. In this way, for instance, in 1 hour or 1 hour and a half, they do not one activity or one task, they do 4. So, and they do this in, they accelerate the learning in this way. So the role of the teacher is managing the classroom, and the role of the family members and members of the community is to promote and to facilitate and promote and enhance the interactions among the children for the learning process. It is very important that this role of the family members. So this is what is different between interactive groups and other kind of group organization of the classroom, like cooperative learning or other kinds of organization. The advantages for the family members is that they coordinate the groups. They get involved in the task. They have the reference. The teacher is the reference in the classroom, and they are helping students to learn. As we will see, coming also from the included project, the way of parental involvement that achieves that there is a higher correlation with learning is when parents are involved in learning activities of the children. So, so that's why this involvement in the classroom is very, very beneficial for the children, but also for the family members who go inside. So we can see lots of benefits that come out from this, and later maybe we can expand. Direct impact on academic improvement. We have a lot of data, so we cannot show in this short presentation, but we have a lot of data from different schools that they have implemented interactive groups, that when they implement interactive groups, the learning is accelerated in mathematics, in reading, in English as a foreign language, in social sciences, etc. Also, this provides an opportunity for parents to help their children because they are involved in the classroom and they are involved with the teacher in the classroom, and then they continue this kind of involvement at home, doing homework and etc. And also we see how this increases the expectations of parents in relation to their children's learning, but also of teachers in relation to these children and their families' involvement. And we can see also that interactive groups, they increase, accelerate learning in mathematics, in reading, but also they see that they increase learning in values, emotions, and feelings. And children from a school told us that when they are involved, they work in interactive groups, they learn more and they become better friends, because children who maybe they didn't speak before, they start helping each other in the classroom, and this creates these bonds of friendship together with learning. So this is one of the benefits or some of the effects of the interactive groups. And we can see also this involvement of parents, no? How this diversity of parents getting involved, no, has benefits for the children and also for the parents. And we can put an example that this is explained also in this article that we published in the Cambridge Journal of Education. And this is the case of one parent that he was in prison, no? He and while he was in prison, from a very low income area, no? The children in the school, they were failing, and the teacher said it would be important that this parent can help out. So they made it possible that the parent could get out from the prison to go and participate in the school of their child, no? Through this involvement and participation, no, after when he is out of the prison, he has become one of the leaders in the community. He has created a cooperative of labor, no, to create work in the community for him and the families in this poor neighborhood. And so it was the involvement in the school that make a total change in his life and the life of their children, and their children are now achieving. No? And as he said in the European Parliament, when they had the conference of the final conference of the Included Project, no, he said that he wanted to share with all the parents in the world that even they were born poor, no, things can be changed. And so this is like a testimonial of how this involvement in children's learning it creates meaning, no, for the children and also for the families, no, when they're involved in this kind of successful educational actions. So as we saw we found in the Included project, no, there are many different types of family and community participation. No? They can participate in an informative way, no? Is when schools, teachers are informed about what the school is planning or doing. There are ways of being involved, what we call consultative, no? Is when there's some kind of participation, official bodies, no? Like a school board, where parents are involved and they can be involved in some decision making in the school, or they're being consulted. But there are other ways, like what we call decisive, when they're involved in decision making, evaluative, when they are involved in evaluation of the school and the children's learning, and educative, when they are involved in the learning of their children, and also when they're involved in educational activities for their children and for themselves in family education. So what we found is that when we go down in this classification, no, the correlation is stronger with children's learning and outcomes. So the more, when there is educative participation, the correlation with children outcomes is stronger. And when there is also involvement in an informative way, the correlation between this family involvement is weaker. No? So when schools implement these successful educational actions that involve families in educative type of participation, no? This, the correlation with improvement with children's outcomes and children's performance is very high. So this is something that we found, and we have data from different schools throughout Europe of these different types of involvement and the results, the outcomes in children's performance. So let's move to the other example of successful educational action, which is the dialogic literary gatherings. The dialogic literary gatherings which is also involved. It's also, you can find information in the toolkit. It's an action which involves reading. Okay, it's a reading activity. And these dialogic literary gatherings are done with children and also with family members. What is this about? Children or family members, they gather to read classic literature. So they read the best works in literature ever written in the world. So for instance, children here that is in the picture, they are reading the Odyssey. In this case, children, it's an adaptation for children. So they read classic literature, and what they have to do is to read and choose at least one paragraph and one idea of why they want to share this with their classmates. And then they share their insights about the reading through a dialogic process in which they have to ask turns and share with the others in a dialogic way. Okay, so the same happened with the family members. They read classic literature. They read the Odyssey by Homer. They read the Waves by Virginia Woolf. They read Dostoevsky. They read different kind of classical literature that they choose together with the coordinators of the gathering. And the methodology that they use is egalitarian dialogue. So they have to prepare at least one paragraph, one idea to share with others, and this and share it in an egalitarian way. It means that what is more important is not what the teacher or the moderator of the activity thinks of the reading, but what is more important is all the insights that the participants have about the readings, about the different pages. This creates increases instrumental dimension. It means that increases, and now we will see, increases capacity and reading skills with both children and with family members. And also it creates a process of transformation. For instance, the fact of reading this kind of books. I remember one of the gatherings that we studied with families, and one mother that she was reading, they were reading Virginia Woolf, and she was explaining how amazed a family member that she said that she explained that she was reading Virginia Woolf and couldn't believe that a woman with no academic degree and low literate could read a book that is thought like the feminists read this kind of literature. So this kind of this creates a lot of transformation and admiration of towards the families who are engaging with this literature, and at the same time they are reading, learning to read, and they're increasing their reading skills. So imagine in there's one school that we studied also, that the children, they were reading, they were having literary gatherings, and they had the literary gatherings for, in this case, in the school, there were a lot of immigrant Arab Muslim families, and the mothers, they were having gatherings in the afternoon, and they said that they wanted to read, only mothers, they wanted to read women's books. And so they read one book, this was in Spain, by García Lorca. They read Bernarda Alba's House, and there was a literary gatherings of fathers in the evening, because the mothers meet in the afternoon, the fathers meet in the evening. And the fathers were reading, also Muslim fathers from these immigrant families, they were reading Metamorphosis by Kafka. And so in one family, the mother and the father attended the literary gathering, and they had a child in 3rd grade that she was reading the Odyssey. Can you imagine what kinds of conversations they have in this home? No? So this is the kind of transformation that we see in the school, in the reading process, but also at home in all the conversations that we have about these books and about what they talk with other classmates or with other parents in the literary gatherings. And this is the kind of transformation that takes place in these family education activities like the literary gathering. No? So that's why the dialogic literary gatherings are a clear example of family education that is successful. No, it's successful because we have found the connection between this family education activity and in parental involvement with improvement of children's outcomes and improvement of also the learning of values, no? And living together in the school. So things that both children and family members say, no? That reading by oneself is different from reading to share. No? When they read to share with others, no? They learn further and they go further in the reading process. No? And for instance, when we think of why they are increasing reading skills, no? We see aspects like building arguments on prior readings or linking ideas. This is something that teachers are asking, like if, for instance, no, even high school children, even I ask myself in my university students to link readings and to link arguments. So this is something that the children do and their family members, they do. No? And here we have just an example that when children, they were reading Don Quixote, no? So, and when they have well, there was a child that they talked that they said that there was this new modern windmills that are calling windmills of aeolic energy, no? And then a child said Aeolus. Aeolic might come from Aeolus, and this we read in the Odyssey that Aeolus is the god of wind, the wind. And so they remember and they make the link between Don Quixote and the Odyssey because of Aeolus and the god of wind. And so all these kind of connections, you see them doing all the time, no? And you see the children, you see the families linking ideas or linking on others' ideas, no? Or for instance, comparing the love of Don Quixote with the love of Ulysses for Penelope. And this kind of comparisons is something that people who came to also the included final conference could see a 10-year-old girl, no? That she was had been participating in one of these literary gatherings, that she explained these comparisons that they made between characters in the classic literature, and after she spoke in the parliament, one of the members of the European Parliament said that this was one of the best speeches that he had ever heard in that building. No, so this kind of success, no, that we see is what comes from the implementation of these successful educational actions, no, in schools. As Ramon said before, of all levels of socioeconomic levels, no? Very poor schools, like the school of this girl, Anya. She's in a poor neighborhood, which is succeeding a lot after the implementation of these successful actions, no? And also other kinds of schools, no? In better socioeconomic or more advantage in terms of socioeconomic level of the families, no? So we see this in both, no? We have many of examples of how they build and how they are developing language skills and reading skills through these dialogues in the gatherings and engaging with these literature, and this is just, you see in the screen, an example of how children are learning to listen to others and engage, building on each other ideas. No? This is a dialogue recorded in one of these gatherings about Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. And then you can also see how they link also these readings, no? This classic reading with something very personal of like when who takes care of you, and this and how friends, what is a good friend, no? And these kind of dialogues, they are learning reading skills, and they are learning values, they're learning about friendship, they're learning of values of living together in the classroom and beyond. And we can see just some many examples of how children improve their vocabulary, and this is something that for instance, there's a lot of research done at Harvard of how we need to build on children's vocabulary in order to help improve the reading in middle school. Okay, so these children, after the literary gatherings, they are working on this vocabulary, and they are succeeding when they get to middle and higher school. So we wanted to just share, no, very briefly, like we were asked, some two examples of these two successful educational actions in where families are involved, parents are involved, also with the children, and also and to then ask you, so if you have more questions and relating to how to do this involvement or do this. So
yeah.
So we'll leave it here, and then I would like to hear from you all the questions you might have about what we these ideas and this research.
Thank you very much, both of you, Ramon and Marta. It has been really nice, really inspiring. I like it a lot. You have touched different things, many important topics, like the right to education for all, the importance and benefits of interactive groups, or also the how to build your children's vocabulary. So it's very interesting. I'm just gonna go now to the chat because there were a couple of questions there. So, for instance, Adriana, she also posted the question in Padlet. She's wondering how to engage gypsy parents who do not recognize woman authority. So what can we do to engage parents? And this question is also linked to the other questions, because there are many questions in the Padlet, but most of them are related to how can we involve or engage parents where they're not interested on their children's education. What can we do? What can teachers do?
Well, what we are doing is to outline those kind of schools. In that case, with a lot, even with 100% of gypsies, which is on those schools had got the participation of gypsy family members within schools. These kind of schools that have had more success in participation of the parents, what they have done is to do not ask parents to participate, no, to have a motivation for participation or for education, but to concentrate their efforts in applying, implementing successful actions in their schools. For instance, the case Marta raised of Rafa, that father in the European Parliament. He was in prison, and he said in the European Parliament that he had some kind of penalty of condemn by probably drug dealing and violence against women. What we did to ask him to motivate for education, to ask him for changing his values? No. What we told him is, we cannot have your children in our classrooms because we are not able to maintain them without conflict. You should come within the classroom in order to maintain the order of your children, and so we can teach the class. Of course, we had to say that also to the government of the region in order to allow him to go out to the prison for doing that. In this moment, we didn't discuss about the quality of women or how the gypsy culture understand the quality of women. No, no, no. We asked him for a concrete task that have a clear consequence in the success, educational success of their children. But being there for this task, he started to have another kind of relations with children, with women, gypsy women and non-gypsy women, and so he changed so much that in the European Parliament told us publicly that his daughter gave to him a book about violence against women, and just cry, he said, and it's good when your daughter educates you in values. This is our approach, and it's having a lot of success with gypsy. In fact, those gypsy having success in schools are following this kind of attitude.
Thank you. Thanks both. Christina is asking in the chat if there is a link for this speech, for Rafael's speech somewhere.
Yes,
Yes,
it's online.
It's online. Can you?
Maybe it's okay if we can try to find it, or if you want to share it with us, and then what we can do is we can share it under below the recording when we share the recording, so that they can also have a look at it.
Okay. Meanwhile, we have a technique here, no? And he will try to include
Perfect.
this.
Perfect.
If I
Thank
just
you.
jump into there, I just quickly want to flag up for anybody who might have missed it. While Ramon and Marta were speaking, I put into the chat the link to the speech of Anya, which Marta mentioned, which also has English subtitles. So do check that out. So if you scroll through the chat, you will find it.
Great.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
I missed it indeed with the questions. Okay, and Carol was also asking in the chat if there is any particular criteria to choose the family member.
Yes, there is no criteria to choose the family members. I mean, in terms that some people think to get somebody in the classroom, they should have some level of education. They should, and this is no criteria at all. No, of course we have there are some like agreements or contracts, no, that some schools do that the families they compromise to come to help the children, and so there is this compromise. What is the goal, no? But there is no criteria, no. For instance, even we have schools that like secondary schools that they have families that they didn't finish the secondary school and they're inside the classroom, no? Or in one of this school of Rafa Layon, which is a school with like 90% gypsy population, there was one illiterate grandmother that she was a volunteer in the classroom, no? And but like the example that Ramon put, she was very important because she was a woman of respect in the community. So it was important, very important, her presence. So there's a diversity of volunteers, but it is important that there is a diversity, no? So maybe this would be the criteria. If you have like some parents and then you have an alumni, no, that is now maybe studying high school or maybe university or not, or is working, no? And then you have so different kind of volunteers with different profiles. It's what enriches the learning process and the interactions.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just quickly
Yes.
come in there? I'm just wondering because I mean this question from Carol was in the context of the interactive groups, and you mentioned that they don't need any sort of pedagogical training or so to get involved, and of course that's really important. But I'm wondering, it's not necessarily an easy task to facilitate dialogue and to facilitate a good communication between the students. So I'm wondering how is that dealt with? I mean, is there a bit of preparation prior to this happening, or how does it work?
Yes, there is a training of them before going into the classroom, focused in two main criteria. One of them, and we tell them, a classroom is like a car. It has only one driver. That means that the teacher is the one who decides inside the classroom what activities to do and how to do it. Of course, outside the classroom, they can talk, criticize, and so on, but not within. The second criteria is that they should not teach the children, just to take care of the collaboration among them with respect to each other and with help one to each other. In our case, in the research, we have a lot about that. At the beginning, sometimes doesn't run very well with some fathers and mothers, mainly those with high levels of education that they want to teach. No? And we should be careful that they should not teach. The children should teach one another. And this preparation is made very quick. And of course, the teachers decide which parents can go into her or his classroom.
Okay, thank you. There was another question. I'm not sure yes, well, this was coming from Laura and from the chat, and she's wondering what to do when the parents do not speak English or Italian or the language that you actually speaks. What to do in this case?
Yes, of course, we have a lot of experience on that. For instance, in the school, we presented as an example, Joaquin Ruira, that there are many languages in the same school. What we do in that case is to be secure that the volunteers jointly among them know all the languages of all the pupils. Sometimes we have not one volunteer in one group, but two volunteers, because one of them do not know all the languages of those pupils. Because the problem is not only with parents, it's also with pupils. In that school, 30%, almost 1 by 3 of the students change every year because they are itinerant, they are not located in the barrio. And we should care that in each group, all the languages of the pupils, there are at least one of the volunteers that understand this.
Okay, that's it. Sounds like a good solution to involve actual volunteers who can also speak these languages. And there is also another question coming from Elena in the chat. I'm not sure I quite understand it, and she's asking why men group and women group. So she's saying that fathers and mothers are not together, and why is this happening? Is this because it's better? Do you understand the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I mean, it's because they decided that they wanted to have This was an example. It's not that it's in all schools like that, no? In this school, they were Muslim mothers that they were taking care of the education of children, most of them, coming to the school, and they wanted to meet among them. So they had among mothers, so they feel better and they want to have a space for them. So that's why they decided to have a gathering and among mothers and read books that were meaningful to women. So that was their own decision, and it's good that they, because in this family education, no, they participate in the decision of how the education will be organized for them. So, and this was their own decision.
In fact, the criteria, the scientific criteria, is not that it's better to be separated or to be together, but it's better to respect their right to decide how they want to be. In some cases, in minority of cases, there are some women that they like to be alone in the group. But that doesn't happen only with Muslims from poor families. Here in the university, even in our center of research, sometimes the women have meetings together, only women. So they have the right to have that. That doesn't mean that it's better or not, but what is better is the right to decide how they want to stay in the group.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was just checking if there is any other question for you.
Can I just quickly come in
Yes.
there? One of the
course.
things that I felt came out from the questions put into the Padlet on the course was, and it wasn't necessarily explicit, but I got a feeling that a lot of the questions had an underlying frustration with parents who were not really interested in the lives of their children and the well-being of their children, and how, as a teacher, to deal with that. And there was a Sofia Rosado Diaz who put this, I felt, sort of most explicitly and most clearly, and she asked, are we engaging them in the sense of helping them to be parents, to manage these relationships, or is school already substituting parents in too many ways? It doesn't necessarily directly link to your presentation, but I do felt it's important to bring it up here because it was such an underlying frustration I saw in these messages from the teachers. So I wonder if you have any comments or response to that.
Yes, we have, but it's a very profound question that really is in almost all the questions you made before.
Yeah.
No? Well, we want to be clear on that, and we sometimes in our training of teachers we put one example. No, if I have a restaurant and I prepare some meal, and no one's want to come, and people do not like our meal, and they are not motivated for our restaurant, what does I do? I should try to motivate them to come? No. I should change my food. I should make a so good food that everybody will like to come without trying to motivate them. And we put this example also for schools. In those schools, for instance, the school of Rafa is in the poorest area of Spain. Even the police could not go into the school, into the barrio. We went there, and what we did, we tried to motivate, the parents to come. No, what we did is to implement the interactive groups in all the classrooms. And so they started to collaborate, some students, a few students, and they started to learn to read and write, and mathematics and so on, and with very good values, collaborating among them, and really feeling integrated, with emotional development and so on. And that was a surprise for these family members, and they started to come, some of them, to show and to see what happened there. One gypsy leader of the barrio said in the European Parliament And I'm not sure if it's in the web, the speech of Antonio. I think no, it's not in the web. But he said 2 years ago, children left school at 12 years old or before without reading and writing. Now, all children, when they are 5 years old, no, they know how to read and write. And this is what we Jesus wanted. No? We wanted them to learn to read and write. So I know that is a very profound question, but the focus for having success is to do not strengthen the idea that they are not motivated. They are not motivated for the school we have now. But if we transform our school and we give them the same learning we are giving to our own children, the child or the children of the teachers, of the professors. If we provide them with a school with the same we want for our own children, they get motivated. They cannot be motivated for the schools we have now in many of those barrios because they learn a little. But I know that this will promote debate and so on, because it's not to resolve in a few minutes. No?
Thanks, Ramon. And Sofia is asking if you're saying that we should adequate the school strategies to the families of the students that we have.
Well, we should adequate, but not to adapt in that sense. Sometimes we understand by adaptation, no? If they are gypsies, poor gypsies, we should give them a different learning to our children. No. Every child has the same right to education. So our approach is that those children of poor gypsy families, they have the right to learn the same mathematics, English, language, and so on, that my own children. And of course, I should adequate how to get this to their conditions, but not the objectives of learning. They have the same right to go at the end of the university and so on that all the others, because that is an excellent model and successful model of inclusive education.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. And I think there are no other questions in the chat, and it's almost 6, so I think we can end up here. So thank you very much, Ramon and Marta, for your great and very inspiring presentation. It has been really nice, and I'm sure all the speakers have enjoyed a lot. They actually commented that it was really interesting. And I don't know, Ben, if you want to say something, because I just saw you there on the screen.
Yes, thanks, Nair. I just as maybe as a closing word to add what you said there, Nair. Just to say, I mean, really fantastic, and such a hopeful and powerful message, I thought, and I think also the kind of passion that you've portrayed here is it. Well, we do quite a few of these webinars, but it's not always the case that this kind of passion is communicated so well. So really, thanks a lot for this, and also to add to this, and for the participants here in this webinar, please also go back into the course module 4. So many of the things that were mentioned by Marta and Ramon. Are sort of also picked up in some of the sections. So I'm thinking especially some of the framework, the educative participation. This is this point Esther Salomon from the European Parents Association makes on the course. Let's try to bring back the joy of learning to the parents, and I think that I think is probably one of the most powerful things also we can try to do. So yeah, so thanks again, Ramon and Marta. Really appreciate it. And as Nair said in the chat here, the participants are commenting that they also really found it interesting and excellent. And it's not going to just reach these participants who have joined today, but as Nair said, we'll share it on the course and share it publicly as well, the recording of this. So hopefully many more people can benefit from it.
Thank you very much to Ben, Nair, and all participants. We are really happy because the interesting not only session you have organized, but the whole course. I think you have made a very good course in general, all the sessions, and a very important issue now for the right of education for all. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Just a quick word, Ben, if you allow me to, before we finish, because participants are entering Module 4 next week. So just a quick reminder that we are having a teach meet on the 30th of October. So if you're interested on presenting any good practice, a lesson plan, or anything that you would like to present, please join, fill in the form. I have just shared it on the chat. And good luck also with the final activity. Let us know if you have any problem or anything. That was it. And again, big thank you, Marta and Ramon. Again, we will share the recording, and I hope to see you soon, hopefully in Barcelona.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for joining this evening, and stay tuned to social media channels. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you.